The rancher found her just before dusk, when the sky was bruised purple and the wind cut through the plains like a blade. At first, he thought the shape near the frozen creek was a fallen tree or a dead bison half buried in snow. Then it moved. He froze, hand drifting toward his rifle, heart pounding. As he stepped closer, the truth hit him with a jolt. She was a woman, enormous in size. Her body stretched across the ice like a fallen warrior from an old legend. She was taller than any man he had ever known, her shoulders wide and powerful, even in stillness, her dark hair tangled and stiff with frost. An arrow jutted from her side, the blood around it already frozen, staining the snow a deep, brutal red. Most men would have turned back. Apache territory was not a place for mercy, and mercy often came with a price paid in blood. But the rancher saw her chest rise, shallow and uneven, and something in him refused to walk away. He broke the arrow carefully, teeth clenched as she groaned, her massive frame twitching with pain, even in unconsciousness. It took all his strength, and then some, to drag her onto his horse. The animal protested under her weight, but the rancher whispered to it, urging it forward, every step toward the cabin, feeling like a gamble with death. Inside his small wooden home, the contrast was almost unreal. The giant woman barely fit on the bed, her legs hanging over the edge, her presence filling the room like a storm cloud. He worked through the night, cutting away frozen buckskin, cleaning the wound, stitching torn flesh with shaking hands. Fever burned through her, and more than once he thought he had failed, that she would die on his floor and bring vengeance down on him from the hills. Near dawn she stirred. Her eyes opened suddenly, dark, sharp, and filled with raw power. For a heartbeat they locked onto his, and he felt it then. This was no ordinary woman. She was forged by war, by survival, by a people who did not bow easily. She tried to rise, muscles tightening, but pain pulled her back. The rancher raised his hands slowly, speaking softly, telling her she was safe, that he had helped her. She watched him in silence, breathing hard, suspicion and strength warring in her gaze. Outside, the wind howled across the plains, carrying whispers toward the distant hills. Somewhere beyond the horizon, riders would soon notice she was gone. The rancher didn't know it yet, but by choosing to save her life, he had already stepped into a story that would change his fate forever. When the giant woman woke again, the fever had broken, but the danger had only begun. Morning light spilled through the cabin window, falling across her face and revealing scars that spoke of battles the rancher could only imagine. She pushed herself upright with a slow, deliberate strength that made the bed creak in protest. Even injured, she moved like a warrior, every motion controlled, alert. Her eyes never left him, measuring him the way hunters measure prey or threats. "Why am I alive?" she asked at last, her voice deep and steady, carrying an authority that filled the room. The rancher swallowed. He told her the truth. He said he found her dying and could not leave her there. He said no more than that, knowing excuses would sound like lies. She listened without interrupting, then reached carefully to her wounded side, feeling the stitches. Her brow tightened, but she did not cry out. "You should have let me die," she said, not accusing, only stating a fact. "My people will come." "I know," he replied. For a long moment, the only sound was the fire popping in the hearth. Then she nodded once. "Then you are a brave man, or a foolish one." She told him her name was Nayeli, daughter of a war chief, whose name was feared across the plains. She had been ambushed by rival hunters near the creek and fought until her body gave out. As she spoke, the rancher felt the weight of what he had done settle on his chest. Harboring her meant more than risk. It meant inviting judgment from a people who did not forgive easily. By midday, horses appeared on the ridge. The rancher saw them first, dark shapes against the pale sky, moving with purpose. His hand tightened around his rifle, though he knew it would mean nothing if violence came. Nayeli stepped past him and pushed open the cabin door. She walked outside alone, standing tall despite her wound, her presence unmistakable even from a distance. The Apache riders fanned out, silent and deadly. When they reached the cabin, one man rode forward, older, his posture commanding respect without effort. This was her father, His gaze moved from the cabin to the rancher, then back to his daughter. "You live," the chief said. "Because he chose mercy," Nayeli replied. The chief dismounted slowly. His eyes hardened as they settled on the rancher. "Mercy can be an insult," he said, "or it can be a debt." The rancher met his stare, refusing to look away, though his heart thundered in his chest. The wind swept through the valley, carrying the tension with it. Warriors waited, hands near weapons. The chief studied the man who had saved his daughter, weighing his fate in silence. At last, he spoke words the rancher did not expect. "You saved what belongs to me," the chief said. "I will return, and I will decide how that debt is paid." With that, the Apache turned their horses and vanished into the hills, leaving the rancher standing beside Nayeli, knowing the most dangerous part of the story was still ahead. 3 days passed, each one heavier than the last. The rancher worked his land with a constant ache in his chest, expecting at any moment to see smoke on the horizon, or hear hooves pounding toward his home. Nayeli remained at the cabin, her wound healing faster than he thought possible. She moved carefully at first, then with growing strength helping where she could, her towering presence turning simple tasks into moments of quiet awe. She said little, but when she did speak, her words carried certainty, as if she already knew how things would unfold. On the 4th morning, the valley changed. The air filled with the distant rhythm of drums, low and steady, echoing through the hills like a heartbeat. The rancher stepped outside and saw them, Apache riders approaching not in attack, but in formation, carrying bundles, chests, and decorated staffs. At their center rode Nayeli's father, his expression unreadable. The rancher stood his ground, every instinct screaming caution. The chief dismounted and raised a hand. The drums stopped. Silence settled over the land. "You did not hide her," the chief said. "You did not trade her for coin. You did not ask for favor." He gestured to the warriors who opened the chests. Inside lay silver coins that caught the sunlight, turquoise stones, finely worked weapons, and blankets dyed in deep ceremonial colors. Horses were brought forward, strong and well-trained, more wealth than the rancher had ever seen in his life. "These are nothing," the chief continued. "They are payment for her blood, not her life." Then he turned to Nayeli. She stepped forward, towering over everyone present, her posture proud. "I choose my own reward," she said. The valley held its breath. "I choose to remain," she said, her voice unwavering. "The man who saved me showed courage without demand. I will repay it with loyalty." A murmur passed through the Apache ranks. The rancher's heart slammed against his ribs. This was no small thing. An Apache woman, especially the daughter of a chief, did not give such words lightly. The chief studied his daughter for a long moment, then looked at the rancher. "Do you understand what she offers?" he asked. "Her strength, her protection, her fate tied to yours." The rancher glanced at Nayeli. There was no uncertainty in her eyes, only choice. "I understand," he said quietly. The chief nodded. "Then hear this." He drove a carved staff into the earth. "From this day forward, this land is under my daughter's honor. Any who harm it will answer to us." The drums began again, slower this time, ceremonial. What began as a rescue had turned into an alliance sealed not by gold, but by respect and a bond that could never be undone. The seasons turned, and the land remembered what had been promised. Spring softened the plains, summer hardened them again, and through it all the ranch stood untouched, as if an invisible line had been drawn around it. No raiders crossed that boundary. No thieves tested it. Even the wolves kept their distance. Word traveled fast across the frontier. This was protected ground. Nayeli became part of the ranch as naturally as the wind and soil. She rose before dawn, working beside the rancher without complaint, lifting beams no other man could move, repairing fences torn apart by storms, riding the outer edges of the land like a silent guardian. To those who saw her from afar, she looked like something out of myth, a towering Apache warrior watching over a lone homestead. To the rancher, she became something quieter and deeper, a presence he could rely on, a strength that steadied him. They spoke more as time passed. By the fire at night, she told him stories of her people, of hunts and battles, of the weight of being a chief's daughter in a world that demanded constant proof of strength. He told her of the loneliness of the plains, of nights spent wondering if the land would ever truly be his, or if it would swallow him whole. In those moments, the space between them narrowed, not through words of romance, but through shared understanding. When winter returned, it came fierce and unforgiving. Snow buried the fences, and the wind screamed across the valley. When night riders appeared again on the ridge, the rancher felt the old tension grip his chest, but Nayeli only watched calmly. Her father arrived alone. He dismounted slowly, studying the ranch, the repaired land, the smoke curling from the chimney. "You have honored the life you were given," he said to his daughter. Then he turned to the rancher. "You have honored the debt you never asked for." He pressed a carved symbol into the frozen earth, marking the land with Apache authority. "No claim will challenge you here," he said. "Not from my people, not from those who fear us." With that, the chief mounted his horse and rode back into the white horizon, leaving silence behind. The rancher stood beside Nayeli, watching the snow fall. What began as a single choice beside a frozen creek had reshaped his life. He had not gained gold or glory, but something far rarer on the frontier: protection earned through mercy, loyalty forged through respect, and a future guarded by a woman strong enough to change the fate of the land itself.